Singularity Beast II was a personal build that I did years ago. I don't even remember how long ago. I think it was like 6 years ago now. And there's about a 19-part build log for it on my channel. And back in the day when I was doing it, you know, it was basically all that anyone talked about on my channel. It was huge. It was so much fun. And it was kind of the last personal build that I did and put up on the channel. It was back in the days when every day I was just working on my own builds. Like if I wasn't building and adding to them and upgrading them, I was overclocking, going for world records or gaming, and it just brings back all of those great memories. But just take a look at how I used to do things back in this time. Like we had no res mounts back in these days. So the reservoir is free floating. We had no pump and reservoir combos back in these days. And so I had to use this little fitting connecting the reservoir. I mean, look how he's mounted. This is exactly how I did it with the UN 120mm mounts and these UN pump mounts. You know, when I was mounting all of this, I was like, how am I going to do this? And I had these UN mounts sitting around. I'm like, I think I can get that to work. And yeah, it ended up working quite perfectly. Even though none of that is really designed for that, it actually worked out quite well. Oh my God, the dual power supplies. I love this. And looks like they're both AX1200 golds. Total overkill. This is 2400 watts here. But absolutely awesome. Just to annoy the hell out of people who always go on about overkill power supplies. And in this build, we're actually going to keep the dual power supplies just for the sake of nostalgia. We're going to run the GPUs off one, the motherboard and the CPU off the other. I'm not sure how we'll split up the rest. But, you know, when people ask me what I do at Singularity Computers a lot of the time, I say, well, we turn this into basically a single bundle of cables, most of it not even visible, you know, and that looking at that spaghetti just there and thinking about the job that lies ahead, oh my God, all of those wire strands have to be sleeved. Everything has to be custom, every single one of those strands. How many strands do you think are here? A couple of hundred, I'd say. And this all has to be rewired. We have to figure out all the pinouts. We have to, you know, figure out how we're going to power all of these fans off the Aquero. Oh my God, it is definitely a big job. Anyway, I'm going to have a cry now as I tear this thing down, but it's going to be a lot of fun rebuilding it. So for those of you who didn't realize, this is not actually the original Singularity Beast II. This is I guess you could say, reincarnation of Singularity Beast II built by one of our fans. And I saw quite a few of these back in the day and over the years, but this is probably the closest one to the original Singularity Beast II. There weren't many things about this that were different. I can see that it's been upgraded maybe once or twice, but this is obviously a rebuild and upgrade. And I'm actually going to finally get to finish the original Singularity Beast II, if you know what I mean, the config in this case with these components. It's basically the next best thing, because for those of you who don't know what happened to the build, it sadly got stripped down and sold off. That's something I explained in the last part of the build log. But the real question is, and what this is an excellent example of, is how far have we actually come in the past like 6 or 7 years since that build? What is it that is so different now about liquid cooling and design and mods and everything else? Now, I will say that if we were to go all out with this system, I would be building manifolds and CNC machine components and doing custom painting. But not many people go that far, and that is because you're already spending an enormous amount on the components. And to do like manifolds and everything else, you basically have to spend that again. Like if I was really going to go all out to the full extent of what is possible, and it just creates something that is so personalized, something that doesn't really have a resale value because it's just for one person. And yeah, most people just want something high performance, something that's high quality, that's going to last, that has a good resale value. I know for the viewers, it would be great to do all of that stuff, but for customers, it's a different matter. Now, from my perspective, like a lot of people think that we're modders, they compare us to modders, but we're not. We're building customer systems. So if I were to do something like that, go to the effort of designing and building manifolds, I would want to do it in such a way that it wasn't just something you could view and dream about, but would actually be accessible to all of you so that all of you, anybody, could have access to it and enjoy it. Instead of it just all going into the one build for the one person, I would rather it be accessible for everyone, because really from my perspective, that is the future. That is where all of this is going, either integration or modularity. And very soon you're going to see some big changes in these areas. But anyway, for now, we are kind of doing an updated version, a current version of Singularity Beast II without going to, you know, the absolute extreme of what is possible. And you're going to see just how, you know, the changes that have happened along the way since I built that system. We're looking at the coolant that came out of the loop, which is going to surprise some of you that it's actually Mayhem's Aurora, knowing that according to Mayhem's, this coolant is only really supposed to last a couple of weeks safely in a loop. I mean, if you build the loop right, you can get it to last longer. I've heard it lasting up to a year or even 2. But, you know, it's not something that I would recommend using. It's not practical. It doesn't have as high performance, and there's a risk of it clogging. You know, it's not a practical coolant. It's purely for aesthetics, and Mayhem's is extremely honest about all of this. I would use X1 or Pastel, which from my experience lasts at least 3 years, usually more. So I've almost finished cleaning out this radiator, although there's probably still some gunk to come out of it. What I've done so far is I've just run tap water through it for a few minutes, and that's what moved the bulk of the gunk. I'm not sure if you can also see, I mean, because this had Aurora in it, you can see a little bit of the Aurora floating around, but the gunk is something else. I don't think it's actually the Aurora, like coagulated or whatever. I think it's maybe corrosion from somewhere, or I really don't know what this is, but I'd like to figure it out because it is important. But yeah, that's pretty bad. That's a lot, and it feels like metal. It feels to me like iron filings. You know, it's really sharp and hard, and there's just a lot of it, and I didn't even catch all of it. I actually had the sink open when I first started flushing the radiator, and half of it went down. So this is only a fraction of what actually came out. And yeah, let's see how much we get out now. So I want to drain this. What I do is I run tap water through it first, and then deionized water to make sure that that's what's going to be in the loop. So right at the end we should get, there we go, see those big pieces? At one point in Singularity Beast II, I had MSI Lightning GTX 680s. So following that grain, we are using MSI GTX 1080 Ti Seahawks. And what was originally in this build when it arrived was GTX 1080 Seahawks. So the customer has decided to make the upgrade, and there will also be a few more upgrades for this system. We've installed the motherboard with the two MSI Seahawks, and you can see that they have a massive PCB. They have a lot of overhang, but they look great. And now that all of this is installed, we've been able to move on to the mods. We've done all of the test fitting, cut out the panels, and the mods are actually now complete. So this is going to act as a cable shroud. It's also the reservoir mounting panel. Now I've painted this in black and matched it to the case with a matte clear coat. This is a DNA matte clear coat. It's extremely hard. So you can see the cutout down here for the GPUs. And because it's going to be set forward 50 millimeters, we've actually made cover panels which run all the way down this edge here, so that when you look across from this angle, you don't see this huge gap all the way down the side. So these are basically shrouds for the side of this panel. We didn't shroud this side because you're not going to be able to get on the correct angle to see in behind it. But I'm now going to mount the pump and res combos onto the panel and install it.